Hey there and welcome. Today, we are going to tackle one of the most important skills for any French learner, how to introduce yourself and actually feel good about it. We are going to break down all the essential building blocks, the phrases, the verbs, the numbers, so you can walk into that first conversation with total confidence. Ready? Let's dive in. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with a super simple, basic exchange, and then we'll level up to a more detailed, realistic conversation. Along the way, we'll build up our grammar toolkit, learn how to count, and master the art of saying not. By the time we're done, you'll have everything you need. All right, let's start with a classic scene. Picture this, a simple, friendly meeting. The only goal here is to exchange names and be pleasant. Let's listen in on a little chat between Jacques and Jacqueline. And, as you'll find is often the case in French, it all kicks off with a polite greeting. Jacques says, "Bonjour, mademoiselle," which is just, "Hello, miss." It's the perfect respectful way to start. Okay, now this is the absolute core structure you need to know. Jacques states his name, "Je m'appelle Jacques," and then he uses the formal vous to ask for hers. Now, quick tip, vous is the polite way to say you, and it's perfect for when you're meeting someone new. This phrase, "and you, what is your name," is one you are going to use all the time. And see? Jacqueline's response is so simple. She follows the exact same pattern, "Je m'appelle Jacqueline." She just mirrors his structure and swaps in her own name. Easy, right? They finish things off with enchanté, which basically means pleased to meet you. And here's a really great pro tip for you. Notice how Jacques uses the masculine form enchanté? But Jacqueline, since she's female, uses the feminine, enchanté, with that extra E at the end. It's a tiny detail, but it shows you're really paying attention to the language. All right, warm-up is officially over. Now we're going to level up and listen to a more detailed conversation. You know, the kind you might actually have in the real world. We'll hear from Anita and Emile, and then we're going to break down every single piece of grammar she uses. Whoa, okay, so Anita gives us a ton of information here. She doesn't just give her name, she tells us her nationality, or rather what it isn't, and then she tells us where she's from and where she lives now. This is absolutely packed with useful stuff, so let's dig in and figure out how she does it. So Emile asks a really common question, but hey, notice this. He uses the informal tu. That's the other way to say you, and you use it with friends or people your age. He asks, "Tu as quel âge?" which means, "How old are you?" But literally, it translates to, "You have what age?" And that's a huge clue for the grammar we're about to cover. Anita's answer is straight to the point. J'ai 18 ans. Now get this, it literally means I have 18 years. In English, we say I am 18, but in French, you say I have 18 years. That's a key difference you gotta remember. Then she bounces the question right back with et toi, which is the informal and you. And finally, we get this line. Anita says, "Non, je ne travaille pas. Je suis étudiante en comptabilité." That's, "No, I don't work. I'm an accounting student." Okay, she just gave us two incredibly important structures, a negative sentence and another key verb. This is the perfect jumping-off point for building our grammar toolkit. So, to build the kinds of sentences Anita was just using, you need a solid grammar toolkit. Let's start with the real engines of your sentences, the verbs. And we're going to begin with one of the most important verbs you will ever learn in French. Meet your new best friend, the verb avoir, which means to have. Remember when Emile asked, "Tu as quel âge?" and Anita replied, "J'ai 18 ans"? Well, those words come directly from this verb chart. So remember, in French, you don't say I am an age, you say I have an age. It's a fundamental concept to get down. Next up is habiter, which means to live. Anita said, "J'habite à Murnau." Now, look closely at that first form, j'habite. See that apostrophe? It looks a little different from the others, right? Well, there's a really simple reason for that, and it's a little trick that's going to make you sound way more natural. So that reason is a cool little concept called l'élision. Now, it sounds kind of technical, but trust me, it's super simple. It's all about making the language flow better. Here's the deal. If a word ends in a vowel, and the very next word starts with a vowel or a silent H, you just drop that first vowel and smush them together with an apostrophe. That's it. And this slide is the perfect example. You would never say je habite. Go ahead, try saying it out loud. It feels a little clunky, right? Instead, because of l'élision, you get the much smoother and correct j'habite. It's a tiny change that makes a huge difference in sounding more fluent. Okay, so to answer that all-important question, quel âge as-tu?
You're obviously going to need some numbers, so let's get you set up with the basics right now.
Let's start with Anita's age, 18. In French, that's 18. And believe it or not, this number actually gives us a little peek into how the whole system works. Let's take a look. Okay, take a good look at this chart. There's a really helpful pattern hiding in plain sight. Once you learn the numbers from 1 to 16, a really logical system kicks in. So for example, take 17. It's d'except. That's literally 10-7. It's the same for Anita's age, Dick's sweet, 10-8, and Dick's nuff, 10-9. And this pattern just keeps going. Look at 27, 27, or 37, 37. Once you see this pattern, learning the numbers gets so much faster. All right, time for our final and maybe most useful piece of grammar. Remember when Anita said, "Je ne suis pas française"? She was making a negative statement. Learning how to say not is like unlocking a brand new superpower in your conversations. And the rule for this is just beautifully simple. To make most sentences negative, you just find the verb and you wrap it. You put ne before the verb and pas after it. You're basically making a little verb sandwich. It's one of my favorite rules because it's so consistent.
Here it is in action. The positive or affirmative sentence is Je suis français. I am French. Now to make it negative, you find the verb, which is suis, and you just sandwich it. Je ne suis pas français. See, that's all there is to it. So let's just pause for a second and look at what we've just done. In just a few minutes, you've learned how to state your name, ask for someone else's, say your age, tell someone where you live, and even for basic negative sentences. You are absolutely ready to make your first introduction in French. So now that you have all the tools, the only thing left to do is practice. I'm going to leave you with these questions right here on the screen. Seriously, try answering them for yourself right now out loud. What's your name? How old are you? Where do you live? It's your turn to introduce yourself. Go for it. Bon courage.